All right, everybody, it is that time again. Episode 3347 of the Cabral Concept. First house call of the weekend. If you're not familiar, every single weekend, we answer 10 to 12 of our community's questions, all based on making sure I keep your time a priority. So I'd love to be able to keep the shows about 12 to 15 minutes long. That allows us to get about 5 or 6 questions per day. All things wellness, weight loss, weight gain, anti-aging, high performance health. So that is what it's all about. Your questions, unedited. I read them live. No prep work. We dive in. We give you a second opinion as to what you might be struggling with. So let's get started. First question today is from Michael. Let's see what Michael has to say. Hi, Dr. Brawl. Thank you for the great work that you do. I'm hoping you can speak to the risk and benefits of regular blood and plasma donations. At what iron level would you likely recommend someone give blood, if at all? Also, what is the difference between a plasma donation and plasmapheresis? Can you get similar benefits from regular plasma donations as you can from plasmapheresis? All right. Great question. So as you know, I don't do any research when answering all of your questions live. It's all based on this year, believe it or not, coming up 30 years of figuring out my own health, and then obviously going into the nutrition and fitness-based industry, strength and conditioning, then into functional medicine coaching, then as a doctor of naturopathy, then as, totally looking at integrative health. But anyway, so that's what I do. So to my knowledge, let's talk about what plasma is. So plasma is essentially, it's like 90% of the blood. It's the liquid part of the blood, not including the red blood cells and other items in the blood. We'll keep it at that. So what happens is when you do a plasma donation, you are essentially doing plasmapheresis, but plasmapheresis, let's take one step back. So if you have high iron in your blood, you're not just giving plasma, you're actually giving blood, right? So that's what you're doing. So you go, and what I would say is give blood, amazing thing for charity, of course. However, you can also do a blood draw. So if you do a blood draw and you look at 100 or so markers in your blood, they're going to take a lot of blood. So believe it or not, I had high iron in my blood about 4 years ago, and I gave blood once, but really what I did was had my blood run like I typically do once a quarter. So I in totality, because now it's taking us down a rabbit hole, but I took us down the rabbit hole, so let's keep going down it. I have my blood run twice a year. So all of the IHPs know that. I basically do beginning of the year and then halfway through the year. But then I run a Grail Gallery test, which is a cancer-based test to make sure that I'm cancer-free. Like, to the best of my knowledge, this is what I do, full body MRI and the Grail Gallery test. It's not cheap. It's expensive. It's $1,000. But I say to myself, what I regret, if I'm able to pay for it, and what I regret, and is caught it early, right? So yes, of course I would regret it. And since I'm, very grateful later in my life now to be able to be in that position, it's what I do. And also, just keep in mind, I have a crazy background with health. So I had up to 27 years of bad health. So, someone like my wife, I don't think she needs to run that test every single year. That's not necessarily in her family. But anyway, I could go down this rabbit hole for an hour. So instead, I'll leave that to our IHP discussions. But anyway, I run my blood work twice a year. Another time I do the Grail test. And if there's any follow-ups, it's one more time. So about 12 weeks, every 12 weeks or so. Okay. So now let's look at this. When you give blood, you can obviously give blood and you give quite a bit. That's going to get a lot of iron out of the blood. So if you have high iron, it's great to give blood, and that's going to lower your levels. So at what level? Well, for men, you want to get rid of it. You don't want oxidation. So essentially, iron is a very corrosive oxidative mineral that causes quite some damage in the body. Now, you need it. That's very important for oxygenation of the red blood cells. Women during menstrual-based years don't really need to give blood. Most likely, they can regulate their levels through their menstrual period once per month, but also the amount of high iron-based foods they're taking in. Men, not as easy, so we can give blood. All right. Let's now just finish out this question. Plasma. Plasma is the more liquid part of the blood. Plasmapheresis, it's the process of giving plasma, because you can actually sit down and you've probably seen it now with biohacking, you can remove the plasma from the blood, and then you can actually insert different substances or ozonate it and then have it go back into the blood as well. So plasmapheresis is actually the process essentially of giving plasma. That's really what it means, at least from my knowledge and the definitions I've seen. All right. Thank you, Michael. Hopefully that was helpful. Anonymous is writing in saying, hi, Dr. Brawl. In my teenage years, I was quite often prescribed antibiotics to to combat cystic acne. Hey, me too. I was mostly prescribed tetracycline and a few others I can't remember. I was on them for quite a while as I did not respond well to Accutane. I'm a male, 40 years old now, and do have quite a bit of GI issues. My first GI doctor diagnosed me with dyspepsia, though I wasn't tested for that, so I don't know how we arrived at that confusion. My second GI doctor ran a stool test that came back normal. Is it possible for such antibiotic during teenage years to lead to GI issues? I know nothing is certain without testing, but just curious if it's even a possibility. And I've largely avoided them since my 20s. Thank you. All right. So anonymous, you obviously do not know my personal story, and that's okay. Obviously I don't expect people to know, my personal story. But I essentially was on antibiotics at least 4 to 5 times a year, every single year throughout childhood. Then at 14 years old, I went on twice a day antibiotics of amoxicillin, and I was on that for almost 4 years. So all through 14 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old, through 17 years old. And it didn't stop then, but that's like the everyday. And I had these big jars you would get at the pharmacy of your twice a day amoxicillin. Anyway, it completely decimates your GI system, completely decimates it, typically causing SIBO or bacterial dysbiosis. It causes candida overgrowth because you're killing the bacteria, but you're not killing the yeast because that would be an antifungal, not an antibacterial. And it's causing a lot of gut permeability. So massive inflammation, massive food sensitivities. Your doctor diagnosing you with dyspepsia, honestly, it's like IBS. It means absolutely nothing. Literally, an IBS diagnosis is the doctor saying, I don't really know what it is. I'm just going to say you have irritable bowel syndrome, and then maybe I'll prescribe you some drugs. Dyspepsia is the same exact thing. Dyspepsia just means indigestion. That's really all dyspepsia means. And so unfortunately, people get diagnosed with this just like they get diagnosed with IBS, but there's always an underlying root cause. There's one test that you should run. Now, again, I don't know the stool test. Not all stool tests the same. I recommend a 3-day stool test. You can find that at stephencabral.com/shop. That takes you over. You can simply search bacteria or just stool test. You'll find that. But an easy one, just a simple urine-based test, is the Candida the Candida metabolic and vitamins test. I've only run the lab 100,000 times, but apparently the name still escapes me sometimes. And then the last one is the IgG food sensitivity test. You could have a shutdown gut where literally there's like no reactivity to anything, or you could have 30, food sensitivities, both kind of showing you that there's serious immunological based imbalances. So if you want to run all three, they're called the gut bundle, the big 3, not the big 5, but the big 3 just for your gut. If you can only run one, run the urine-based one, Candida metabolic and vitamins test. Great first place to start. You said, I'm done with lab testing. I don't want to do any lab testing. Okay. We have something called the CBO protocol, and you would do that with 3 weeks of the citracidal drops. I recommend working with an IHP to do these protocols, but of course, you are welcome to do as you wish. All right. And then my book, The Rain Barrel Effect, details all of these things as well. That book is free at stephencabral.com/shop for everybody in the US. We're working on something for international. You just pay for shipping. That's it. All right, Elizabeth is up next. Hi, Dr. Bral. On a previous show, you mentioned a red light therapy device, and the devices get better every couple of years. I noticed the one on your resources page is at least a couple years old, so I'm not sure it's still as effective as some of the newer ones. When looking at red light therapy caps for hair growth, what numbers, levels, and how many lights should be the minimum for the red light therapy cap? Oh, this is a great question. Some can get quite pricey, and I'm looking for something cost effective. Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing back from you. Yeah, so just over the last 6 months, I updated those recommendations. So that's a great call. Are they on the new resources page? I never do this during the show because it slows down the pace, and we've got lots of questions to answer. But I do want to see if they've been updated by my team. By the way, I have an amazing team. So if they're not updated, they'll be updated very, very soon. But let's go to the hair loss. Oh, actually at stephencabral.com/hair-loss. That's everything that I've learned about hair loss. And I'll tell you right now, there's a lot to learn. So no, that has not been updated. All right. So I will tell you though, I actually just giving a new recommendation. And, I always get our community, well, not always, but 80% of the time I get our community a discount code that's private to us. So I'm recommending the higher dose new red light hat, it's called. It is 120 red lights at the 650 nanometer spectrum, which is exactly what you want for hair growth. So everything is So why don't we do this? I will put that at stephencabral.com/resources very soon. So you should see it by the time the show debuts. I'll try to put it on the hair loss page, stephencabral.com/hair-loss. That's everything to regrow your hair and to stop hair loss that I use myself. You can see my own before and after photos, which are pretty crazy. And again, that's all I did. Just the things on that page. That's the truth. And then one more. Oh, for the face. Yes, I did a product recommendation for the face and the newest and best red light out there. It is expensive. We get you at least 15% off. The code is usually Cabral 15. I know that's what it is with the red light one. Oh, there it is right there. All right, no, that's updated. That's on Skin and Hygiene. It says red light panel. I'm going to have the team update that to say red light face panel. This is the one I use myself. So basically post-workout for 10 minutes, I lie on a PMF mat. And on the PMF mat, I have already heated it up, but I have then the face mask right above it because I like to just stack, if I can, my protocols. And I talk about this in High Performance Health at stephencabral.com. Actually, it's just at highperformancehealth.org. But this is what I use. And the code is Cabral, and it saves you $100. So that's pretty great too. That's at stephencabral.com/resources. Yeah, most of these things are already updated. The higher dose hat with the 15% off literally just came out probably 2 weeks ago. So you're right on it. All right. Thanks for writing in. And you're right. They do get better every couple of years. So it's not like the previous ones I recommended were bad. So obviously you don't have to stop using them because they work. They still work. But everything gets better. I think Moore's law is every 3 years things double. I'm not in that camp, but we'll put it this way. I believe that's pretty much what it is. Like every 3 years, things get that much better. So, all right, here we go. Next question is from... Let's see. Marie Eve. Hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm an IHP level 1 and soon level 2 student. I have been using the X39 patches for 3 months and very much expect your knowledge about all things. You've experienced, seen, read, and done so many things in the health and wellness world, and I take your opinion very seriously. You've mentioned a few times in the podcast that you've not seen any clinical studies about X39, and I wanted to share these two with you. Okay, so then... Understood. You link to them. And actually, I did a show on that. I've done it twice now. So let's see. My latest show on X39, which I give a very fair review, I think, is episode 3318. Yeah, that's it. stephencabral.com/3318. So it literally just came out a couple weeks ago. So you probably obviously wrote in about a month ago. So you wouldn't have seen this for 6 weeks ago. And here's what I use them for 90 days. And because I want to give things a fair shot. I read the research. One study is absolutely legitimate, that it raised the GHK-Cu copper stem cells in the blood. It did that after 7 days. So there's no doubt about it. Was it statistically significant? Yes. Was it game-changing? I don't know. It is difficult to say how much of a difference this product is leading to. And since it's not an inexpensive product, and there's so many, in my opinion, better products with better science behind them, that for right now, I'm recommending those. Now, in the future, if they have better than a 7-day study and they've got just more information and clinical research, then I will absolutely recommend them. So it's not that I say that they're bad. I don't think they're bad at all. I think there is benefit to it. I've seen the research in that. And that's that. But, here's another show for you. Let's see if I can find it right here. Where is it? I've got all right, there we go. Episode 3324. Top 10 supplements to boost stem cells naturally. These 10 products have far more clinical validation than the X39. And you can get at least 2 of those supplements, maybe 3, for the price of 1 month of the X39. So that's just kind of how I think about it. If you have unlimited, so I should say that. If you don't mind spending the money and you're able to do it, nothing wrong with adding the X39 patches as well. Okay? So that's that. I think that's the fairest way to say it. All right. Ian is up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. I hope this message finds you well. Same to you, Ian. One of my favorite basketball players, Victor So that's the Boston accent there. Let's rewind that, okay? Victor Wemby, sorry. I'm not familiar because I'm not as much into basketball as I used to be when I was younger. Was diagnosed with a deep vein thrombosis in his right shoulder, which is his shooting shoulder. He's 7'4", 21 years old. From my perspective, it's very likely that taller people develop cardiovascular issues and health issues in general, more often than shorter individuals. But Wemby is quite young, and perhaps we might not expect cardiovascular issues at this age. I'd like to break down what may lead to blood clotting, especially in tall humans. What might the body be responding to with aggregations of blood in an attempt to reach its balanced state? Lastly, what modalities can be taken in order to mitigate blood clots and athletes in particular? All right, this is a great question. I don't know if I've ever done a full show on this, but let me rattle off a couple for you right now. So, remember, the body is always trying to heal, but sometimes there's an assault on the body. Now, again, I don't want to get this show banned, and whether you feel amazing about it, you don't feel amazing about it, I just want to go strictly by the science. We know that a certain medical intervention over the last 4 years has led to an increase in blood clots, but also the virus itself also can lead to an increase in blood clots. Okay, so both can. So I just want to state that. And that is partially because there's massive inflammation with both, massive amounts of oxidative stress, which can lead to, as you said before, an aggregation of blood cells, a clotting of tissue there, clotting of cells. So that's one prolonged, it's usually not the shoulder either. That's a strange thing. It usually happens in like the calves or lower body. And then, it moves its way, unfortunately, to be, pulmonary embolism in the lungs. But he's obviously very active. So that's in his favor. Sometimes hormonal based issues. I'm assuming he's not on any anabolic steroids or any growth hormone. That can be an issue. There are genetic factors. Multiple people in the same family can get them. Certain medications. I don't know what medications he may be on. That could be an increased risk of blood clots. But that is certainly one. And then overall toxin exposure, heavy metals, mycotoxins from mold, et cetera, can be that. One of the things that I like to do in general is have people on 2 to 3 grams of omega-3. He's a larger, taller individual. He would obviously be on more like 3 grams rather than 2 grams. Natural anti-inflammatories from nature, rosemary, garlic, onions, ginger, turmeric, amazing things to work into the diet. I would certainly be using proteolytic enzymes. Again, I can't provide any medical advice, medical treatment plans, medical cures, or many medical advice in any way, but I would be using serrapeptase and nattokinase called proteolytic enzymes. You can see the ones we use at stephencabral.com/shop. Same with the omega-3s. And then just a good, healthy, anti-inflammatory, high omega-3 diet. Like that's what I'd be doing, a Mediterranean style diet. That is absolutely what I recommend. And that is that. So great question. Appreciate you writing in. That is our time for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 24 hours from now, with a brand new second Cabral HouseCall of the weekend. Take care. Hope you're enjoying your day. Talk to you soon. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything. Functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.